Question: have you ever said to yourself, hey, I want to design a book, but I want to break all the possible rules I can when making that book because I believe that free expression is the most important factor of this publication? Well, that's kind of like what our friend CJ decided, and he turned to me and asked me, Dave, I need some help. I would like to get your opinion on the book that I'm producing. Can you tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, and how I can make this better? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Yes, there are ways that we can make these things better, but sometimes they're not necessarily the ways that you might think. Now, this video is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to seeing from me because really this is just a Zoom call between CJ and I, and so it's a conversation versus me just coming to you all full edited and high energy like I normally am. And number two, the video quality isn't that great. In fact, it's quite crap, but that's okay because what's most important is the conversation. In the conversation, we talk about how to reel yourself back in when maybe you're getting a little bit too out of control, or let loose the reins and go all out, create the most crazy thing you can possibly can, because sometimes that's where magic happens. Before we get into it, how about hitting the like button for CJ being so brave to allow me to dissect his entire work process and then turn it upside down on its head? You'll see what I mean in a second. Do you have end of print? Oh, hold on. Let me look at something. I got it right here. Hold on. Do you have that book though, End of Print by David Carson?
No, I don't.
You need to get this book.
Okay.
Here's a perfect example. Let me make sure I can show this right. Look at this page.
Yeah. See, I love that though. I'm so drawn to stuff like that.
Yeah, End of Print. It's the graphic design of David Carson. It's actually by this guy named Lewis Blackwell, who was an editor. But he worked with. Carson did the layout.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, it's like all the stuff that Carson did throughout his early years. This is the number one, well, at least for the longest time. I don't know if it is anymore. This is the number one selling design book of all time. It's pretty crazy stuff.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. He had no rules. He had rules, but but then he turned around and do something crazy like the microphone's in the way, like that page down here.
Yeah.
It's so
there's so much freedom in it when I look at his stuff.
And that's what I think you can incorporate, but there's also, it's funny because he only took like a 2-week design class.
Yeah.
That's all he took, or maybe it was 3, or I don't remember exactly what it was. But he picked up on he had a really good, strong instinct to design fundamentals for like space and balance and things like that. Like, this one's going to be tougher to see. It's kind of small, but
oh yeah, that's hard.
It's really it's super chaotic. Probably a struggle to read, right?
Yep.
But it still kind of feels like there's stuff going on there. Or this one here where he pulls in a lot of negative space right here, right? And creates some interesting elements with the typography and the titling there, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't care if you can't read it.
No.
Have you heard the story about where let me see if I can find it. He was reading this, he was on Ray Gun magazine, and this is one of those most popular stories, but I can't remember if it was Brian Ferry or the band that he was in, one of those two. He read the story and he hated it. He said it was just boring. Just boring, it was dull. And so he had the thing laid out, and then he was just going through it, going through his typefaces. Oh, here it is. Perfect. This is so funny. Yes, I'm Brian Ferry. Okay, this is hilarious. You see that?
That's great. Yeah.
It's just dingbats.
Oh, yeah.
He went through his typefaces and he was just like, no, 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 no. Because he was trying to get some sort of emotion out of what he was, but he hated the story.
Yeah.
So he printed the whole thing because it was like, that's the only thing I can think of that looks good. It's like, because now it's at least visually interesting, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So honestly, this would be a really good investment for you, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll pick it up.
Um, because it's just, you know,
Yeah, see, that's amazing. It's
you know,
amazing that he just did it.
yeah, he had carte blanche to do whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
That's essentially like the first 4 pages all on top of each other, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah. So it's just this, having this free expression, but he went whole hog. Now, keep in mind though, this was a music magazine, right?
Right.
So the context of having this kind of radical punk rock,
Mhm.
ideology behind what he was doing made sense
Mhm.
because it was like it. I mean, nobody before ever had done anything like that in publishing.
Yeah.
Not really, not really. A little bit. Neville Brody is an art director from a British art director. He worked on the magazine called The Face,
Mm.
another classic, and he would do some pretty interesting stuff. But he was still relatively mild compared to David Carson. And, so in America, nobody'd seen that stuff, the
Yeah.
magazines that you saw before that, like rock and roll magazines, Rolling Stone, Cream, Teen Beat, whatever, wouldn't do that if you paid them $1 million to do it.
Yeah.
They would never do it. But he just said, "We're gonna break the rules. We're gonna make this as visually interesting as it is, because it's meant to represent what people should feel when
Right.
they're listening to this music."
Yeah.
Because of all the arts in the world, nothing else out there conveys emotion in an instant like music, right?
Mhm.
You can hear a song and instantly take you to a place
Yep.
that you like immediately. And I'm sure
Yeah.
you felt this, right? There's songs you won't listen to
Yep.
because of where they take you, right?
Yeah.
But there are songs that you do want to listen to because that you want to go there in that
Yep.
moment, right?
Yeah.
That's that. He conveyed that, right? He took that and like, this is what I feel. This is how it turns into an expression, right?
Yeah.
So in the context of that of Ray Gun Magazine, it worked. Is it going to work for this book? Maybe,
Mhm.
but you've really got to. What I think is that you either got to go two ways. You either got to um, find a way to convey what message it is that you want to convey with the work that you want to do, and kind of be a little bit more cognizant of that.
Mm.
Um, Which is, I mean, but really that's the answer both ways, but it's like, okay, like let's refine what we've got going on,
Yep.
or we push it, we go all out.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask. Like, is it better to go one way or the other versus toe the line?
Um, I think that so the thing is that is this the first editorial or book oriented thing that you've ever designed?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of these things where you haven't done it enough to
Okay.
know, right? It's just going to
Okay.
be one of these things that it, as a first attempt, it's good.
Okay.
There's a lot of people who would have not gotten. I would have had a lot more critical um, responses to people about this. But I knew as soon as I looked at it, I knew immediately, like, okay, I see what he's trying to do,
Got it.
right?
Okay.
But I feel like it's like you're partway there.
Okay.
So it's either figure out like how to make it more cohesive
Mhm.
or how to go completely off the rails,
Okay.
right? And you may go completely off the rails and still have to pull it back a little bit,
Yep.
right? But you won't know that until you get there, right?
Yeah.
So, but like I said, that experiment with I had like print out the page and see what you come up with, and
Mhm.
don't be afraid to bring in other elements
Yeah.
into
I
into
already
that.
I already have like so many ideas going through my head with everything
Yeah,
that you've given me. I mean, like, I see the book in a brand new light.
yeah.
Like,
And
yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I would definitely. if you are going to come with this kind of creative expression in these pages, I would definitely take some time in that introduction. Obviously, maybe you've written the introduction and I don't read it
I
because
haven't yet.
obviously it's
It's still the Latin.
so I would tap into that so that
Okay.
people understand what it is that's going on, right?
Uh,
They understand what they're getting into the moment before they even get into the pages.
okay.
And the irony was that I would keep that like really straightforward.
Oh,
Right?
interesting.
It's almost
Yeah.
like, I mean, you can play with it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But keep it straightforward so that it's almost like the irony of like, okay, here, hey, I know what I'm getting into, and then you go to the next page and it's like, plow. Oh, I
No.
know something else I forgot while I was showing these pages of Carson. Um, don't be afraid to use columns too.
Okay.
You know, um, i if you're going to use columns, you'd probably definitely want to reduce the type size.
Hmm.
Because you get columns in there on larger type sizes, and it breaks the words in different ways, and that might be cool, but it might also kind of mess with your thing a little bit, you know.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, so I think so. I think that's good. I just realized what time it is. I got to get moving here pretty soon, but
Yeah. Nice.
I think you've got a good starting point here to do some cool things, and don't feel like you have to completely reinvent what you've got going on. Just see if
Okay.
you can tap into some things on different pages,
Yep.
and really see what you can come up with, right? Like I said, either pull back a little bit and just kind of like, okay, not pull back. That's the wrong phrase. I think you're doing good. I think it's like just maybe think
Yeah.
more about what you're trying to say in that moment, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then figure out, am I saying it here? And if I'm
Yep.
not, what can I do to say it? And
Hmm.
maybe it's just go nuts,
Yeah.
you know?
Man, this has been really, really good.
Yeah.
Like extremely helpful.
Good.
There's
Good.
so
I'm
much.
glad.
I have a page full of notes and a million ideas in my head now.
Right on.
Yeah, this was awesome, man. I
Okay,
really,
well, just parse that
really,
down to the things that matter right now, right? I
yep,
mean, you can write down all the notes you want and put all your ideas down, right?
yep.
But then just focus on a couple. Don't feel like
Okay.
you have to incorporate everything that comes out of your head because not everything is a good idea.
Yeah.
It's just right. It's just an idea at this point, right? You got to really
Yep.
figure that out. Try one thing at a time and then see how it works, and then see if you can bring some continuity somehow throughout the whole thing. I think you're doing a good job, and I think that yeah, there's some little things that you can make that create that continuity. But I think that if you really want to, you want to go free expression on this, go for it. But
Okay.
go for it.
Yeah.
Like, I know you had a post recently about fear, right?
Mhm.
Fuck fear.
Yeah.
Fuck fear. I mean, it feels like a scary monster,
Mhm.
right? It feels daunting. It feels like, like it big, huge monster standing in the corner trying to keep you from, getting out of yourself. But it
Yeah.
really isn't. It's like a paper mache.
Mm.
It really is. Because the minute you push against it, it falls away every single time. Every single time I step into fear, it falls away like that. Every
Mm.
single time. It never like I can't remember a single circumstance where I felt like after I pushed back against fear that it came back at me.
Yeah.
Never did. It never
Yeah.
has.
That's
So
awesome.
that's why I'm like so fearlessly jump into shit a little bit too early, sometimes a little bit too fast, like just like I went on vacation, I came back and I redesigned my entire website
Yeah.
and changed the name of my URL and everything. And I'm like, hey, guess what, guys? I'm doing something new now. Right.
Which I'm
Like,
super excited about. But
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Me too. I have a friend that I do mastermind calls with. We just hash stuff out every month, and she's like, "How did you do that already?" I'm like, "Well, first off, Shopify. Second, I was like, I just had it in my head. I knew what I wanted.